Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Eden Fractal. We're here for our 113th meeting. I have a great pleasure to be here with Rosmari and Tadas, and we have some exciting things on the agenda. So, if without further ado, I suppose I'll get into the presentation with what we have on the agenda today. Rosmari and Tadas, of course, if you want to say hello or share any thoughts, then feel free to jump in at any point. Thanks everybody for watching. Hope that you're having a great day. Everyone's welcome to join in our upcoming events. This is our last event of 2024. It's been an amazing year. If you're not familiar with Eden Fractal, check out edenfractal.com. It's a community dedicated to optimizing collective decision making with fractal consensus processes and processor games. We've been doing this since 2022. And the whole Eden community has been doing this since 2021. We've been pioneering ways for communities to coordinate that are fair, fast, and fun. And that's our vision, actually, that all communities should have the tools and methods to make the best possible decision making. Our mission is to implement fractal decision making processes throughout society via collaborative research, development, education, gamification, community engagement. And that's really how we get to the vision. And you can learn more about fractal decision making processes. We work a lot with what we call the respect game. For anyone who's not familiar, we go into breakout groups, earn respect and reputation tokens, and then that can help make better decisions as well as more fun, enjoyable, all sorts of great stuff that goes on. But I think everybody who's watching here, for the most part, probably is familiar. So we're going to keep the presentation pretty quick for today so we can get into the topics for today. But yeah, everybody's welcome to join the biweekly events. As I mentioned, this is the last event of 2024. We will be returning, I think, on the 16th of December. So I think we'll have a few weeks off for a winter break, but we will confirm that in the Eden Fractal
January.
Telegram group. What's up?
16th of January.
16th of January. Sorry if I messed that up. I don't know what I said. Okay, well, we'll be returning in after a few week break in January, and of course we produce videos too. So over the break, that can be a great opportunity to check out the videos of all the great events we've had. Over 100 videos that you can watch, and you can watch all the recent progress too that we've had in Epoch 2. You can also check out the tools that we've been building, that great developers like Tadas have been building on the website. EdenFractal.com is a place where you can learn about all this. As a reminder, there's also now a new blog. There's our videos page where you can see what we discussed last week about ORDAO deployment, which is the amazing new software that Tadas has been building. So we talked about cross-fractal innovation deploying on base, and we had all sorts of great stuff that you can discuss with the new Respect Games app and stuff like that. And when you go to edenbrock.com/videos or the Eden Creators YouTube channel, where you can also watch the Optimism Fractal videos. Everyone's welcome to join our event, so we encourage you to join and invite friends. We expect a year of transformative growth and great collaborations going on in 2025. So we hope to see you there. And I think I kind of mentioned this already, but check out the blogs if you haven't already. This is a new addition to the Eden Fractal website. We can learn more about fractal decision-making processes and so forth, and check out the Optimystics tools as well as the Fraps repository. This is where you can check out the apps and start using them to empower your community with the Respect Game and these fractal decision-making processes. A whole bunch of articles and benefits and capabilities where you can learn more about each of these apps and concepts and software that can help you so much. We're hosting the Optimism Fractal and Option Town Hall events tomorrow, and they'll be continuing for another week before the holiday season in the middle of season 5. So I hope that everybody enjoys, and we invite you warmly to join us for the upcoming Optimism Fractal event before the end of the year, as well as our 2025 plans as well. So for today's agenda, we're following up on our strategic vision discussions that we had last week, where we talked about Epoch 2, which we've been working on for the past 6 months or so, and kind of thinking of the next best steps for Eden Fractal and fractal decision-making processes throughout society. We talked a lot about implementing ORDAO. We revisited the idea of higher order fractals. I put out this message here about growth strategies, explaining how I also, Tadas and I messaged a bit between the last meeting. We had an excellent discussion. So I definitely recommend checking out the video on edenfractal.com/videos to learn more about where we're at right now, because that provides some pretty important context for where we're at. But we're going to continue that discussion basically. And after discussing a little bit with Tadas between then, I drafted some refinements to a 2025 strategy document. To help create a framework for our transformative growth in 2025. So I made 5 draft proposals that I can go through here, and very curious to hear your thoughts, Rosmari and Tadas, as well. Very curious to your feedback, and if anybody's watching, if you want to share any messages in the Telegram chat as well throughout the break to help guide the evolution of fractal communities and fractal decision-making processes, then you're very welcome. as a refresher, this is the document that we looked at last week, where we talked about these four proposals to create core intents for Eden Fractal, new game prompt aligned with our evolving ecosystem, schedule change to optimize community participation, going back and forth with the Optimism fractal events on a bi-weekly schedule, and the deployment of ORDAO on base. So there's a lot more here that you can see. There's also more about how this ties into our foundation and our vision and our mission and our current direction. So encourage people to check it out if you haven't yet. Core intents, very interesting stuff. But I'm just going to encourage everybody to watch the most previous video and explore the document that you can find in the Telegram group to learn more. It's still a bit of a draft. I had some new ideas, but yeah, check that out. We're on kind of a tight schedule today, so we're going to go pretty quickly. And then this is the document here that I created. Just published it yesterday. Eden Fractal 2025 strategy refinements for nurturing transformative growth. At some point, I might merge these in some ways, but it was just I thought about this so much. I had a lot of ideas. I figured making another document was helpful. So this really follows up on our discussion from last week in the document and some inspiration from Tadas about higher order fractals. So this document has five proposals now. One is specifically how to retroactively distribute respect for Eden Fractal, the community. Another is a strategic approach for higher order fractal recognition. Higher order fractal being like a fractal of fractals, kind of bringing together many different fractal communities that have operated throughout the years. The third proposal is for evolution of biweekly respect games with a refined game prompt, focus on advancing governance, coordination, and public goods. The fourth is implementing an ongoing higher order fractal distribution and system, similar to how Tadas conceived originally in the article that he wrote, but also with some changes as we discussed last week and some new ideas. And then I also had the idea of adding a third core intent focus on fostering builder collaboration. So this article, before I get into it real quick, I'll just show you. There's kind of a lot here, so I don't know if we'll have a chance to get into it, but encourage people to maybe read about it over the break, and then we can discuss it more. And yeah, it has some links to all the previous context where you can learn more about where we're at and where we're at so far and what we've been discussing lately. Obviously you can check out the full EdenFractal.com website to see the full 2 years, but that's really focused more on past 6 months as we've been thinking about how to set the next stage for Eden Fractal in 2025. And then, yeah, I kind of proposed two different implementations of ORDAO here for the higher order fractal and Eden Fractal, which maybe we want to combine them. I'm not sure. Also, biweekly respect games and quarterly higher order evaluation and two different phases. It's kind of a lot of information I know, so I'm just throwing it out there. I don't know if Tadas or Rosmari had a chance to check it out there, but yeah, you could see proposal one for this and proposal two and so forth. So I don't know. Maybe I should, Tadas, Rosmari, do you want to jump in and share any thoughts here, or would it be helpful if I go through these proposals? I'm not sure if you had a chance to read through these yet. What do you think is the best thing to do from here? Or also, if you just have different ideas in your mind too, I'm happy to go in a different direction. I just put this out because I was very inspired in our last event and figured this could be helpful to guide our conversation. But if you have other ideas that are totally different than this, then I'm very happy to hear about it too and focus it our time however you think is best.
Maybe let's just go by each proposal, one by one. Let's go a bit deeper in each proposal.
Okay, sounds good. So, yeah, so just to be clear, to kind of lay out the proposals and how they tie together. So, like, basically, proposal one and two are about retroactive distribution for respect. The first one is for Eden Fractal retroactive distribution for the Eden Fractal community, and thinking about how we can, if we want to, and how we would award respect to the past 40 weeks since we stopped playing respect games. And I think that that can also set a foundation for proposal two, which is setting a retroactive distribution for the higher order fractal, which awards respect to all other fractals and people who participate in other fractals. There's probably 15 fractals, something like that. I don't know exactly how many that have operated over the years, maybe 10, something like that. And then using proposal one with the Eden Fractal distribution of respect to bootstrap or the higher order fractal, and doing that with a metrics-based evaluation system that's modeled off of retro funding round 4 and 5, where we pick metrics that we care about to be able to, rather than like just giving each fractal the same amount of votes. I think it makes sense for fractals that have, hosted a lot of events or have had a lot of participation or have posted their consensus on chain. We can have like different variables that we can use to build an algorithm. And then we can both determine an algorithm for distributing the respect to the higher order fractal to the different fractals, and then also to vote on the like allocation, like the different variables, how much each variable will be there. So there's a lot of new ideas too. I know Tadas only had the chance to reach out with you in response to this yesterday, so happy to go in a different direction too. This is just what I'm thinking is probably best, and we can dive in deeper. But just to give like a more holistic overview of how these tie together, and then the proposal 3 and 4 are. I still think it's a good idea to do bi-weekly respect games with an enhanced game prompt. And I think a more general one like advancing governance, coordination, and public goods is probably a good idea to do there. But we'll get into that. And the proposal 4 is for like a quarterly or monthly evaluation framework that uses like a snapshot kind of poll, like a weighted poll, like you had suggested to us for the uh, for the higher order fractal that would use the higher order fractal distribution that would be created in proposal 2. So that's the idea. And then the fifth proposal is tying these elements together to refine core intents that have the same core intents about implementing the respect game and utilizing the respect token, but then I also added fostering collaboration between builders in there because I thought that was a good idea. But that's kind of like a high level overview of each of the proposals. And then, yeah, if you want to start off with this first proposal, as we said, basically my idea here is that I think that it makes sense to this proposal makes sense because it can be used to bootstrap other proposals, and I think it's kind of like the first thing that we maybe needed to figure out. Basically, there's been about 40 weeks or so where we didn't play respect games at Eden Fractal. We played Eden Fractal respect games, or what we now call a respect game, for about 75 weeks. So we have a respect distribution of about 80 people or so, 90 people who participated in those first year and a half. But we haven't done anything since then in terms of respect distribution, even though people have contributed a lot to the Eden Fractal community over the past year or so since we implemented this new setting and format for Eden Fractal. So my idea here is that we just do obviously it'd be best if we could do like a precise like a respect games. That would be much more accurate to weigh contributions, and we also could just not count these past 40 weeks at all. But I think that it would be more fair and more representative of contributions to Eden Fractal over the past year or so if we just do like a flat rate distribution based on event participation, and something like 30 respect per event, 40 respect per event, or 50 respect per event. These are some numbers and some rationale that I'm thinking about. I'm kind of leaning towards 50, as you can see in the bullet points here. But open to do it in a different way, of course, too. And then basically the way this could work is just review YouTube recordings. I think I could probably do this in like an hour or so and just see if people participated, like go to the timestamps, go to two different things and see if people are there at both times. And then that would see if people are there for half the time. And then that would give us some approximate measure to be able to award and give governance, rights and power and stuff like that and respect to people who participated at Eden Fractal. It's obviously not perfect, but I think it's probably the best thing to do to not only value that first 75 weeks, but also the past 40 weeks as well, which is arguably potentially more important for Eden Fractal success over the past year or so forth. So that's kind of that's kind of like a high level overview of this first one. Tadas, I know you have very limited time, so I don't know if you want to respond and dig into that one. Of course, we can also follow up with this throughout the week or throughout the month as well, or we can move on to the next proposal. But curious, Rosmari, Tadas, do you have any thoughts about this that you want to share?
Yeah, a question. So, uh, are you proposing, so if we are deploying ORDAO for Eden Fractal on base, are you proposing to uh, like award the existing respect that is already earned and award retroactively award these for these events over the last 40 weeks, or are you proposing to award just the 40 weeks when it comes to a new deployment?
I'm planning to combine them. And that's one of the things I didn't cover here, but I think that like strategic considerations, it makes sense to balance out like how much that first 75 weeks should be valued and respected compared to the past 40 weeks, and then combine those into like a total respect for Eden Fractal, over the first 113 events or 115 events or whatever, by the time we do this to have the Eden Fractal distribution so far, basically.
Okay, that's clear. Now maybe go to proposal 2.
Okay, sounds good. And Rosemary, feel free to jump in if you have any thoughts or questions along the way.
I do have maybe the question about benefits of doing that, the distributing respect for the past 2 weeks, but you kind of answered it with saying that it might you said that it might be more beneficial um to have the respect for the past 40 weeks than arguably than the respect from the first 70 weeks or something. Apart from this, maybe later we can cover some other benefits of doing that.
Okay. Yep. Sounds good. Happy to dive into it deeper whenever you think the time is right. And yeah, basically it's about trying to fairly award respect to people who contribute to Optimism Fractal or to Eden Fractal rather. And right now it's like either we only count those first 75 weeks and then we say people who contributed over the past year that those contributions are not respected at all, or we figure out some kind of rough way to calculate that. So I think it's more fair, and it also more fairly or like more accurately distributes governance power and so forth in the ORDAO community based on people who have contributed to Optimism Fractal, or I did it again, to Eden Fractal over the past year as opposed to just the first year and a half. So that's kind of like the main motivation for doing this.
Okay, thanks.
You're
That's
welcome.
clear.
Okay. So, and then, yeah, of course, we can read into this more detail and we can leave comments here, or we could talk about it, schedule a call, or to talk about it in the Telegram chat. And I suppose we'll move on to proposal two, like Tadas had suggested now, if that's good with you, Rosmari. So, proposal two is to basically use the to bootstrap a higher order fractal. And I'm thinking like it makes sense to have two different implementations of ORDAO. One is specifically like the Eden Fractal ORDAO distribution from those first, 115 weeks of people who contributed at Eden Fractal. And then the second proposal or the second implementation of ORDAO is for like this higher order fractal. And last week it wasn't clear. We were kind of combining them. So we could potentially do just one and call Eden Fractal the higher order fractal, or it might make sense to have like a different distribution both for the Eden Fractal community and for the higher order fractal. So if we go with that, then that first proposal will seek to create the ORDAO distribution for Eden Fractal community on base, whereas the second proposal will be to seek to set the distribution of respect for the higher order fractal. And this is specifically for the initial retroactive recognition of, the various different fractal communities, say, including Eden Fractal, Optimism Fractal, Genesis Fractal, Alien Worlds Fractal, Upscale, Respect Games, all these different things that people participated in are under consideration basically for who should get respect, and the members of those communities who might get respect in the higher order fractal. So basically the idea that I have here is that um, so Eden Fractal, first we get that proposal one, and then I was thinking what Tadas suggested, and maybe you see it differently, Tadas, but one issue that I had with what you were sharing was like, I think that you might have been insinuating that each fractal gets like one vote basically in this higher order fractal initial distribution. Maybe I misinterpreted that. Good chance I did. But I was thinking, well, different fractal communities have contributed different amounts. Like say Eden Fractal or Genesis Fractal or Optimism Fractal, they've operated for years in some cases with dozens of contributors. Where some fractals might have just operated for like a couple events and maybe they had five people. And it's like, well, how do you fairly evaluate how much vote weighting power each of these fractals should have in the initial distribution? And my idea for that is that basically Eden Fractal, once we have that initial ORDAO distribution of Eden Fractal, the Eden Fractal community can basically vote on like a metrics-based evaluation system for fractals, and then first set that algorithm for how like what metrics based kind of system will work to distribute respect to the different fractal communities, and then vote to weight the distribution. Actually, that might be one step, maybe not two steps. I don't know exactly, but I figure that makes sense. It's modeled off of retro funding round 4 and 5, where rather than say just picking projects, the badge holders in retro funding, they picked different kinds of metrics. Like they talked about like, well, how many on-chain transactions did this, how much we value on-chain transactions versus the reputation of the on-chain transactions versus, I don't know, like they had like 10 different factors. And I think we could do a similar thing with the initial distribution for the higher order fractal. So that's kind of like a broad overview. I have some ideas here about why I think that Eden Fractal is in a good position to do this and in the best position to do this because of the historical context, longest running fractal, Eden Fractal with relatively high participation for 2.5 years now. strategic alignment with our mission and vision, specifically focused on supporting fractal decision-making processes. This and also the technical infrastructure that we like. For example, we're working with Tadas, who's been building ORDAO, so we're in a position where we're already thinking about these kinds of things in the higher order fractal. And yeah, basically, I think like this is probably the most decentralized and like fair way we could set up the higher order fractal while having this kind of accuracy to figuring out some rough approximation of bootstrapping this higher order fractal respect distribution. So yeah, this part goes into more detail about the strategic distribution process. So once we come up with an Eden Fractal ORDAO, then we can do this kind of metric-based evaluation and develop the algorithm. I think it'd be fairly simple, but I have different kinds of metrics that might be helpful here, like total amount of events that were hosted or organized or participated by the fractal, average participant count, maybe duration of active operation, even that's kind of like total number of events, total number of unique participants, whether or not the submissions where the consensus results were posted on chain, whether or not that used a software to distribute the respect, if the events were recorded and stuff like that. Like I feel like these are kind of things that we could tweak in algorithm to determine just how much each, well, not directly determine how much each fractal should have, but create an algorithm for what kinds of these metrics and in what proportion they should be counted when distributing that respect to the higher order fractal. So that's kind of like an idea there, and kind of a high level overview of it. And I see Rosmari has her hands up, so I'll pass it over to Rosmari.
Okay, thanks. I have two questions. One, how are you going to get the information about the metrics for each of the fractals if they're not an applicant in the case of retro funding, where they submit their own metrics for X amount of time? In this case, we have to probably do our own research on these fractals to decide their metrics and have their metrics available, or reach out to some people who are within those fractals that are running. And my second question is, what's the purpose for doing this distribution of respect for currently for fractals that are running, that have run or have been running? What is the long-term vision for doing that? And maybe these are more detailed questions. I'm happy to discuss them later too.
Okay, well, they're great questions. Thanks, Rosemary. So happy to go into more detail, but try to give you a quick answer right now. So one, yes, we would need to most of these metrics are available on block explorers. So it'd be fairly easy to see because a lot of fractals have done these things on chain or they have videos and like that. So we could reach out to people if people want to participate in it, or I don't think it'd be that much research to do. So I could also take care of that. And then as far as the motivation, Tadas can speak more to that too, because Tadas was the original writer of the higher order fractal idea. But just as like a high level overview, well, one thing I should mention too is that I have these in different phases, but I think that this could wait till later too. I was thinking earlier today, like we could make a roadmap and say we're going to do this not in early January or February, but we're going to do this say in halfway through 2025 or something like that. And that might provide us more time to come to consensus about it, and then also kind of get the benefits of like rallying around an idea. And generally, I see this as benefits to rally around all the different fractal participants towards growing fractal decision-making processes, accomplishing our vision and our mission, perhaps resparking some of the interest from people who aren't active participants, but were active participants in the past, giving them voting power and like respecting their contributions towards the fractal ecosystem over the years. These are some of the benefits over it. But I can go into a lot more detail about it too, but I think maybe I'll just leave it at that for now, just because we're on that relatively short timeline. So hopefully that answers your questions to a certain extent. Happy to go into more detail. I'm also happy to hear if Tadas wants to answer that question, or Rosmi, if you want to add any questions or thoughts there.
Not sure if you just mentioned it, if I missed it, but it could also revive a lot of people's interest in fractals. If we could say like, here you come claim your respect that you earned in the past and just say Genesis Fractal, come here on base and get it. And people might come for that and join one more meeting, and we could get back into the fractal ecosystem. And this way we could basically give more people might end up coming both to Eden Fractal and Optimism Fractal even that way.
Yes, I agree. And then it's also then important to think about the question we ask, the prompts, the weekly, bi-weekly prompts. That also relates to how we're gonna make them come back again, and and that prompt question has to be broader enough to cover all fractals contributions in a way.
Yeah, and I don't know, another option, and if we are planning to deploy these, if we are planning to deploy ORDAO implementations for these fractals, then they will be able to play basically respect game on base or optimism. But I don't know if that's the way Dan intended to go here.
I think that's a great idea. So that's another benefit of it too, that in doing this, we're also creating the distribution, like we're kind of helping people reboot their fractals basically.
Yes,
And we're helping to
exactly.
reboot them on base or whatever other EVM chain that they want to do it on. And so that can be very helpful for
It's like resurrection.
right. Yeah. So there's that. And then at the same time, we're also making this higher order fractal that's far more decentralized than any one of these fractals on their own too. And can potentially, be a driving force in itself towards helping more fractals in a way too. So um yeah, those are some big benefits that I see.
Yeah, so we covered, I think, half of a proposal of the whole document. I
Yeah,
think that's a
there's
good start. I have some thoughts, but I maybe uh, I will share them later, maybe in this as a comment. And yeah, like I said, I have to go, but I think it would be great if you would uh, try to cover the whole document here if Rosmari is willing to stay, and then you could share a video with me. Or maybe I will go through the document either way later.
okay, sounds great. Well, yeah, the document will be here, and as long as Rosemary's up for it, then I think she is. Then we'll go through the rest of the document. I know that she was already kind of seeming like she was ready to get into proposal 3 about the respect game prompt. So, yeah, we'll have both the video and the document for you, Tadas, and looking forward to hearing your feedback. And I wish you a wonderful break as well. I suppose hopefully I'll see you tomorrow too if you're able to make it for Optimism Fractal. But otherwise, I hope you have a great day, and I hope that you have a great Eden Fractal break as well. And thanks so much for all the great work over 2024 and previously. And I'm really excited for the next steps with the ORDAO. This is and High Order Fractal. So thanks so much for all the inspiration, all the great work, Tadas.
Thanks to you too, and see you hopefully tomorrow.
All right, see you, Tadas. Thank you.
See you. See you.
I just remember to change the camera angle right there. Anyway, that's just like the filmmaker and me thinking that we should change the camera angle earlier. All right, Rosemary, you ready to continue with the document, or do you have any other thoughts about the stuff that we talked about so far that you want to go over before we go into the next proposal?
Mm, no, I like the idea of rebooting given the chance, not just the chance, but the inspiration for fractals to reboot on base and optimism. And I mean, it depends where they're running right now, if they are running, and might be good to also even ask them, like invite a representative from each of the fractals and ask them about their journey, any, I don't know, hurdles they've been facing. Is it with the blockchain transaction costs for submitting on chain? Is it the participation? Is it lack of purpose? Things like that, and that can also be helpful to maybe in the future to understand how to help them best as a community, I mean.
I agree. Yeah, having that kind of outreach and feedback and reconnecting with Fractal community members and leaders, I think that's a great idea. And it also kind of ties into in addition to doing that kind of in the beginning, one of the proposals also talks about doing a retro pitches kind of event on a recurring basis, say like a quarterly retro pitches event where people can come to join. We did retro pitches for Optimism, what people do to help Optimism, but we could do retro pitches for fractal communities where people can have, 5 minutes of speaking time or however much to share what they accomplished over the past, 2.5 months in terms of helping fractal communities. So that's another idea too, although your idea kind of seems more like retroactive, and I think it's definitely a good idea, like providing that support um, to both, see where they're at and like maybe why they haven't been doing fractals lately, or what they love about fractals, or what they wanted that they didn't previously have. Now a lot of the software is available and a lot of the educational stuff is ready, so we can support them with the software, with the educational content and so forth. And we can also that would be great to reach out to them to let them know, hey, we're planning to set up this respect distribution, and you can use it now, so we can reconnect with them in that way.
Yeah, I agree. Um, Sounds good.
I agree. Okay, well, yeah, curious to hear any of your thoughts about that. And speaking of fractal leader, we're just joined by Gudasol. Woohoo! Great to see you. How you doing? You're muted right
Mm,
now.
good.
Good to see you. I'm good. I'm in Guatemala. How you guys doing?
Doing well. We're halfway through. We were just with Tadas, and Tadas just had to drop out a couple minutes ago, and we're planning 2025 strategy for Eden Fractal, and specifically fractal communities. Like, we're trying to help grow fractal communities, as you know, and we're aiming for transformative growth in 2025. And so I made a few proposals. We're talking about some of it's inspired by what Tadas has been building with the ORDAO software. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it or if you've been following it much, but Tadas
No.
built some. Yeah, he built some really powerful software for fractal communities. And then there's also the Fractogram app and the Respect.game app, Respect.games app, I should say, that other developers like Abraham and Vlad and Lenara have been building, and Howard. So we're planning out how to make the best of this. And Toss also had the idea of a higher order fractal, which is like a fractal of fractals, and awarding respect to other fractals that have operated, such as perhaps Aqueduct, because I know we did a respect game at Aqueduct many times for a while, a year ago, or maybe a year and a half ago, or something like that. Yeah, well, that's where we're at right now. We've been generally doing all sorts of fractal stuff, and it's been exciting, but it's great to see you, and appreciate you joining, and hopefully you're enjoying your time in Guatemala.
Yeah. I'm excited and optimistic to hear you guys are still pushing forward and like the software is super developed. As I've mentioned before, like Tetra is really where I want to push the fractal stuff. With Tetra, I'm not sure the last time I talked to you, but basically I went from sort of this idea that I've been working on for a long time to having like a kind of structured, okay, this happens, this happens, this happens, this happens. And we've currently like just applied for grant funding, so fingers crossed we'll get some funding for that. Even if not, we're still gonna like do a token sale and try to bootstrap. We'll see what happens. Anyway, that is sort of like 2 or 3 steps down the road in the roadmap. The idea is like we want to get 12,000 registered users, and then we're going to open up a fractal. Because the reason what I see is really important is to have like almost that critical mass to keep things going. And in the original Eden Fractal, that's something like we had from day one. Just like all the other parts were like still being worked out. Now that you and Tadas and Vlad have made the technology, I have a lot of faith that like whenever we can onboard like a mass of people, maybe not all at once, but that can sort of get this wheel rolling and exponentially growing. So that's where I'm at. I'm excited to move forward and to keep following the progress and growing together and seeing how the future unfolds.
All right. Well, excellent. Thanks so much, Gudasol, and I'm right there with you too. So I've been meaning to reach back out with you too, because I remember you'd reached out to me, I don't know, maybe like a month ago or sometime around maybe 2 months ago. Well, we messaged a little bit and we saw each other. And I know you've been working on. Well, I'm glad to hear that all is continuing, and I hope that I wish you the best with the fundraising efforts. And yeah, I'm very much looking forward to seeing the overall plan and vision that you have and learning more about what you're aiming to do with Tetra, as well as the integrations that you're planning about and considering with Fractals and Respect Game or however you're envisioning it. So, yeah, if you wanted to provide any more detail about it now, then feel free. Well, also, at some point, I think it'd also be good for us to, I don't know, maybe like schedule another call and dive into it deeply, or maybe we can orient an event around it as well, too, because it seems like have a lot of stuff going on. So, in any case, I suppose happy to hear more from you about it now. If you want to share any other share any other details and preview for us, or yeah. In general, I'm just looking forward to seeing what your next steps are and collaborating. And yeah, I think that just like you said, like now we have a lot of foundations laid. It took us like 3 years plus in a way to get these foundations laid with the software, with the education and so forth. And um, now it's time, 2025, to bring it to the world. So
Yeah. I totally feel like so like you're saying, like we have the foundations, we have this like you both, as well as all the other people who have been coming in, have sort of built this like seed up. And what I hope is that with all the tech that you've built and all the foundations, like Tetra can be sort of like the meme coin that makes a bunch of people come and find out about it and use it. So basically, just to give you a little bit more about like the on-ramp of where we're going. So just you personally understand, but also anyone else who wants to be involved. Right now, we have a Telegram group. It's just called Tetra Grids. And our goal right now is to just sort of get people onto the wallet, so onto the XPR network. The website is weboff.auth.com, and you can get like a free wallet. This is on the Antelope technology. And after people have a wallet, the next thing we're going to open up is like in invite registration. So your username becomes the invite code, and then you sort of pre-register to Tetra, and that lets you get the airdrops. It lets you post the future offers and things like that. Um, then like the next phase, I'm actually not sure like what the concept of Tetra is that I've given you, because I've sort of I've changed since like I originally told it to you like last year. So the idea now is to like have personal offers, and we want to let people operate with a UBI income. So you get an income every day, and that allows you to unlock offers as well as incentivize people to take your offers. So for Eden Fractal, for example, you could perhaps be getting 12 raw per day, and you could say, okay, here's an offer. We're going to give you 3 raw if you come to this meeting, and maybe 3 raw is worth $1.50, or maybe it's worth 5 cents, who knows. But as you come, the person that comes to this meeting, then they're incentivized. You're getting this free advertising and free promotion. And the idea is like to build up these networks and grow from there. So first step, get the wallet. Second step, invite program. Third step, you can start to publish offers and get raw. And then from there, we want to sort of build up these connections. And then eventually, once we have 12,000 people, launch the Fractal. So yeah, that's all I have for now. I'll definitely keep you in the loop. We are still not quite in the phase that I'm like reaching out to people because we don't have that invite. The invite system isn't live yet. We're still kind of waiting for funding because that pushes things in one direction or the other. But yeah, so that's the full update, and that's all I got for Tetra right now.
all right. Well, sounds great. Thank you for the update. That's great to hear all the progress, and looking forward to hearing more and seeing where it goes. I hear Rosmari clapping, and she says, feel free to share the link to register. Yeah, I was looking forward to. So yeah, sounds like a lot of great plans though, and I'd love to see how you're further developing and refining the plans with Tetra, as well as, going to get it basically, and making that progress. And then the plan to start up the Fractal at 12K people. That sounds awesome. I'll pull up a window for anybody who wants to check out. I encourage people to check out what Gudasol's been working on at tetra.earth, where you can learn more about this. We only have about 15 minutes left scheduled too, so we could go longer, but we do still have three more proposals here on our strategy document too, so we should get back to that momentarily. But yeah, I recommend people check out tetra.earth to learn what Gudasol's been up to and get involved. Gudasol, feel free to share any of the links in the chat or in the Telegram group as always. And yeah, I'm looking forward to learning more about this. We see weekly meetings, meet for an hour on Zoom to share contributions and convince your breakout room to elect you as representative of your region and country. Very, very interesting. So, yeah, I'm looking forward. I see that there's been a lot of updates to the website since I read it last. So I'm looking forward to reading it and learning more and further reconnecting Gudasol and also helping you too, however we can. So, for example, a lot of these tools that we've been building, that developers in the community and so forth, and a lot of the educational resources that we have might be able to help bootstrap or help foster growth of Tetra as well. So, looking forward to exploring all the ways we can collaborate going forward. Rosemary, if there's anything you want to add about Tetra, then feel free. Or Gudasol, if you had any last thoughts about Tetra, then feel free. But otherwise, I can return to the Eden Fractal strategy document that we've had that we're on. Does that sound good with you, Rosemary?
Yes. Yeah, sure.
Okay, sounds good. So just to maybe briefly
Maybe
recap it.
before then,
Okay.
yeah, just one thought I had was maybe how can we connect Tetra with what we were just discussing just now with the high order fractals? If you have any ideas on that.
Yeah, we can definitely
Yes.
join.
Yep. So, and that kind of goes to proposal four. So maybe first, but before we get into those ideas and how it connects, I'll just give that high level overview. I'll try to do in like a minute or two for Gudasol. And for anybody who's watching, there's a lot of information. I imagine it might just be helpful to have this kind of general, like quick recap as well. And that's how we can maybe tie in Tetra to the higher order fractal concepts that we were just talking about. So, for Gudasol, I don't know if you had the chance to watch our most recent video, but as of 2 weeks ago when we met, I had published an Eden Fractal 2025 strategy document for nurturing transformative growth. And we talked about setting core intents for Eden Fractal, which are focused on implementing the respect game throughout society, increasing the utilization of the respect token. And I now have another core intent about fostering collaboration between builders. We want to start playing the respect game again at Eden Fractal. And we want to start the current version I have for it right now, there's a whole bunch of different proposals here, but the current version I have is advancing governance coordination of public goods. That's very open to changes. We're planning to change the schedule of Optimism Fractal to biweekly and to alternate with Eden Fractal. So there'll be a weekly cadence, but each one will be biweekly. And then we're implementing ORDAO on base for Eden Fractal. ORDAO is the software that Tadas has built, as I mentioned before. If you go to optimistics.io/tools, you might be interested in seeing this Gudasol if you haven't yet. But here's where you can find out the Respect Games apps that are either built or in development. The one on the left is the asynchronous Respect Game app that Vlad and Lenar built, and the one on the right is the Fractogram app that Abraham and Howard are building that's being connected with ORDAO. And ORDAO is an advanced, awesome EVM infrastructure for fractal communities that we're planning to implement. And you can learn more about each of these in the articles about ORDAO and Respect Games apps and so forth, where you can see a bunch of videos about ORDAO and details and stuff like that. So I think that a lot of stuff will be, very useful for you to learn about the different architectures you can use if you're interested in doing that for the fractal community. So that's where we're at, planning to deploy ORDAO for Eden Fractal in 2025 and make those changes, or at least that's kind of like the discussion where we're at so far. We're not necessarily sure about each of those. And then we're at with today's proposals. I made more proposals for retroactively distributing respect over the past year of Eden Fractal since we stopped playing respect games, starting up a higher order fractal, like a fractal of fractals, and recognizing prior fractals and ongoing fractals like Eden Fractal, Optimism Fractal, Aqueduct, Genesis Fractal, and so forth, all the different fractals that have contributed and have made respect distributions, creating a higher order fractal of these fractals. And now we're on the proposals 3, 4, and 5, which we are about to get into. So I'll get into that. I also want to ask too, we only have 10 minutes left, but it would be nice if we can get the chance to go through at least briefly these three proposals. So I'm just wondering, Rosmari, are you okay with sticking around a bit longer than 10 minutes, or do you have a hard stop, or do you have a preference? And also same for Gudasol as well.
I can stay.
Okay. Okay. Sounds good. Good to know. Well,
Yeah, I'll be listening. Sounds good. Love to hear
okay.
more.
Sounds great. Thanks, Gudasol. Thanks, Rosmari. And feel free to jump in at any point too. But with that, I suppose that provides a decent context. Also, for context for anybody watching, or Gudasol, if you want to catch up on more of this, we have a link to the top of this document. I shared this in the Eden Fractal Telegram group. We have videos about our last event and the strategy document and all these things organized, as well as the original Higher Order Fractals article that Tadas wrote about a year ago as well. We have some new ideas here, and we're also building on the Epoch 2 proposal that was created that I created back in summer, where we did several videos about this too, kind of building on that, basically figuring out the next steps for Eden Fractal. So that's some context for where we're at. And we're talking about implementing both an ORDAO for the higher order fractal and for the Eden Fractal community. And we're thinking about doing both biweekly respect games for Eden Fractal and a quarterly retro polls kind of or like retro pitches, retro polls, respect trees, voting with respect on snapshot polls, basically, to enable fractal communities to vote on each other's contributions and impact towards the fractal ecosystem. So that kind of ties in a little bit to what Rosmari kind of hinted at with how Tetra might play into this as well. Tetra could play a role in this ongoing process of the higher order fractal, as well as collaborations in many other ways too, like with the respect games and other kinds of collaborations we can have. So we discussed that first two phases about the initial distribution of respect for Eden Fractal and for the higher order fractal, and now the next two proposals, which are currently called phase 2, but we'll see what the actual chronology winds up being. But this is about the ongoing coordination, which is about proposal 3 is refining biweekly respect games with enhanced game prompt. And then proposal 4 is for creating this quarterly or monthly evaluation framework for ecosystem-wide coordination with the higher order fractal. And then the fifth proposal is tying this together in strategic alignment with the core intents. So I'll continue here then on proposal 3. We just went through the first couple proposals in a pretty good detail, but of course people can look at the Notion document and share any comments for more details. And then the evolution of biweekly respect games. So first off, there's a couple little errors here because we're not transitioning to biweekly respect games for Eden Fractal. We've already been, well, actually, no, we are transitioning to biweekly respect games because previously we were just doing biweekly events, but now we're transitioning to biweekly respect games as we discussed in the Epoch 2 proposal. And so basically the main core of the idea here is just what are we going to what is your second going to be about? What's the game prompt going to be? And in the previous week, I had come up with a bunch of different game prompts. If you go to the proposal 2, I had what did you do to help people enjoy the respect game, benefit from respect, or improve human coordination? And that came with option B. I had how did you help make collective decision making more faster, fun? What did you do over the past 2 weeks to help people improve collective decision making or improve coordination? How do you foster the adoption of the respect game? How did you help grow respect? And the one that I settled at that I like the most right now is, and this goes to something that Rosmari had said before about like having it general and broad enough that other people from fractal communities and people who aren't familiar with fractal communities can really engage with. And the prompt that I have here that I think is best right now for Eden Fractal is what do you do to advance governance, coordination, or public goods? So yeah, we haven't really discussed this so much, so very happy to hear other ideas and maybe people have much better ideas than this. But this is an idea that I had. So, well, just to put one thing clear. So each fractal can have their own game prompt still that they play the respect game for. Like, for example, Optimism Fractal. I imagine it'll still be something, very along the lines of what did you do to help optimism? And people go to Optimism Fractal to share what they did to help optimism, basically. And Similarly, I don't know exactly what the game prompt for Tetra will be, but maybe it's what do you do to help Tetra, or what do you do to help advance the mission of Tetra, or something like that. And so each fractal will have their own game prompt, and this is also different um, than the way that we'll do the higher order fractal. Because the higher order fractal, I think it will be kind of like I had the ideas of retro polls and retro pitches and respect trees, where people will vote with their respect on contributions to the fractal ecosystem. And perhaps there could be some other question there. But first, this proposal specifically focuses on, okay, so we're going to do biweekly respect games at Eden Fractals' plan. What are we going to play the respect game for? In the beginning of Eden Fractal, it was kind of rough in general. It was like, what do you do to help Eden? What do you do to help Eden Fractal? What do you do to help EOS? Because we were working closely with the EOS community at that point. But it was never firmly defined, and there's lots of confusion around that basically. And then generally, it's worked out pretty well with Optimism Fractal having what do you do to help Optimism. But Eden Fractal isn't specifically for Optimism or any one ecosystem, other than our mission and our vision is about improving decision making, implementing fractal decision making process throughout society. So my idea for this strategic game prompt about what you do to advance governance, coordination of public goods is that's very in line with what we're doing here with the respect game. That's something that everybody who's contributing to the respect game or the utilization of respect and contributing to the mission and the vision is advancing governance and coordination of public goods a lot. But at the same time, the total fractal community of people who know about the respect game or know about fractals is very small. And there's a much larger community of people who are working to advance governance and coordination of public goods. And so I'm thinking that this is a good one because it keeps it like general enough that it can be accessible. We can market it to people who are in aligned and adjacent fields, who are interested in governance already and interested in coordination of public goods. But then at the same time, have it where it also it provides a natural pathway for those people to get involved with Eden Fractal and for people who are contributing to fractal decision-making processes in their set game and so forth to have something that's very much aligned with the game prompt as well. So people can get lots of respect if they help promote the respect game or help grow the respect game, as well as if they're doing some other cool tool or innovation or community that's also advancing governance, coordination of public goods. So that's kind of an overview of what I think here. I see Rosemary's had her hand up for a little while, so I'll pass it over to Rosemary. Curious to hear your thoughts. Thanks also for the applause, Gudasol. Much appreciated.
Okay, thanks. I was thinking whether in that question, what did you do to advance governance, coordination, or public goods? We have to also add using the fractal process or the fractal method or not. Because if you don't have this included, then that would mean that you are rewarding anyone who advances governance, coordination, or public goods, even if it's not using the fractal process. And whereas I think we are trying to really push for the fractal process specifically, and that way of advancing governance, coordination, or public goods. And maybe that would be something to discuss, whether to, yes, as you said, keep it broad, but at the same time, are you going to reward the same way people who are specifically focusing on fractal, improving governance and so forth with the fractal processes or not? So that will probably that prompt has to really be connected really tight with the mission, with Eden Fractal's mission and vision. And right now, I don't see the fractal process really in there. So those are my thoughts.
Great points. Thank you, Rosemarie. So yeah, I've thought about this for many hours over the past weeks, and at first the mission that I had was what do you do to help expand the respect game, or implement respect, or implement the respect game, or expand utilization of the respect token, or something that's very specific towards the fractal process and fractal decision making. But my current thinking is just what did you do to help it, or I suppose just to add over the past 2 weeks. So what did you do over the past 2 weeks to advance governance, coordination, or public goods? And my thinking there is that we leave it open, and Eden Fractal does respect people who are not using the fractal process yet, or maybe not ever, but who are advancing governance, coordination, or public goods, because Like one, Eden Fractal's vision, it's not specifically only about fractal decision-making processes. Eden Fractal's mission is, but we do want to create a world where every community organization has the best tools and methods possible for making the best decision-making possible. And some people might be building, adjacent tools, complementary tools, or, complementary communities that aren't currently implementing fractal decision-making processes, aren't playing the respect game, but still are helping to advance that overall vision that we have as Eden Fractal. And also, if they are advancing like governance and coordination of public goods, if they're building governance tools or they're having a community that's focused on public goods, they're probably like the biggest like target market that we have. Or not, that's not right. They're not the biggest target market because there's not that many people who are advancing governance, coordination of public goods, but they're like the most aligned kind of people, kind of like people who are really interested in governance or coordination of public goods are probably going to be people who are going to be like, wow, the respect game is awesome. And I want to go and like implement the respect game for my community, or I want to contribute this, or I want to, use it to compose with my tools or whatever what we're already doing. So my thinking is that Eden Fractal should uh, welcome people who are not yet implementing fractal decision-making processes, um, and respect people who are not implementing fractal decision-making processes if they're doing something to advance governance, coordination of public goods. And that opens like our funnel like a lot bigger because if we only welcome or only like award people with respect to or contributing to fractal decision-making processes, right now there's only like, I don't know, maybe a few dozen people who are doing that consistently. So it's like a very small amount of people who are like really in that like segment basically. And that would be like in order to grow, like I think we need to kind of widen our scope a little bit and welcome people who are in these like adjacent fields basically and make them feel like they won't get like the bottom respect necessarily just because they're not helping with the respect game or they're not currently doing the fractal decision making processes. Everybody who participates in the respect game is helping in a way, but um, that's my thinking. But at the same time, too, though, like Eden Fractal's mission is still to implement fractal decision making processes throughout society. And I think setting the core intents of specifically implementing the respect game and increasing the utilization of respect, those are things that people can keep in mind when they're evaluating contributions. So if somebody does like a lot of great work for advancing governance and coordination of public goods, and they're doing it specifically for the respect game and fractal decision making processes, then yeah, maybe they'll get a higher respect level than somebody who just is helping governance, coordination of public goods a lot, but in a different way. But I think it's up to the community to basically like subjectively evaluate that. And this will position us like in the best possible way for success when our game prompt and like the game prompt is really like how we're reaching out to the world in a way because like we're promoting each of these events. Like every 2 weeks, Rosmari, because you're reaching out to like public goods, like funding groups and stuff. You're reaching out to Regen Learnings and Green Pill and stuff like that. And if you reach out with your marketing and you're like, hey, come and rank each other based upon how much you helped fractal decision making processes, most of them don't currently know what that is. And so they're like, that's not really my thing. I'm not going to go. But if you say, come and rank each other, play the respect game to advance what you do to help public goods and governance coordination, they'll be like, yeah, that's great. And then while they're there, they'll learn about the respect game. And overall, I think that will wind up more so both accomplishing our vision, supporting all kinds of governance, coordination, public goods in general to support our vision, and then also work towards our mission, specifically a fractal decision-making process as well, with this kind of key adjacent kind of those kinds of builders who are really interested in this kind of thing already.
Thank you, thank you. Great.
My pleasure.
Yeah, I figured that actually from your first two sentences when you were responding, I was like, yeah, it makes sense. And because what is happening is they would naturally do the fractal process because they will be playing the respect game when they answer this question. So here you go.
Yep, that's correct. Well, apologies if I went for too long. Like I got inspired. I appreciate you asking. And yeah, that's my thought anyway. I'm sure maybe we could think of something better, but I just figured these are the three things that like governance, coordination, public goods, like the three things that are like most aligned with what we're doing, and yeah, it provides that natural pathway for people to get involved with the respect game without narrowing it too much.
No need to apologize. It was great. Thank you.
You're welcome. My pleasure. Sounds good. Well, yeah, curious if you have any more thoughts about that, Rosmari or Gudasol. There's also, so we went over a lot of this, but once again, there's more in this text too. So, talked about how this is driven with the mission and the accessible discovery pathways and the strategic ecosystem development. All of these we kind of broadly went over, but you can read it for a more detailed overview of these. And then also in the fifth proposal about the core intents, the relationship between this prompt and our core intents is explored more in that fifth proposal. And I do think there's like some benefit in kind of like overlapping the game prompt with this idea that core intents with the mission, with the vision. They don't have to all be the same, but they're all related and they all work in synergy to drive towards each other. And the game prompt plays that special role. So that's basically the idea for the game prompt. And then also part of this proposal for the evolution of biweekly respect games. Well, I suppose just first off that if anybody has any other ideas or any other feedback for that, this is something that I think is very important for the community, what we choose for a game prompt. Obviously, we can change it, but it's probably good to have something that's pretty good steady. So yeah, if anybody has any ideas, Gudasol or anybody watching, then we'd be very interested in hearing what you think would be the best game prompt for Eden Fractal Respect games. And I'd be very happy to hear feedback. Rosemary?
Okay. Well, one other thing I just thought about is what if people from the same team, let's say Green Pill community, they come in and maybe present their contribution as a team in a way, or so in that case, maybe we can change the prompt to be what did you or / your team maybe do to advance governance, coordination, or public goods? Because let's say we get 3 people from the Green Pill community coming in, and either they're going to share their own personal contributions, but if they don't and they work as a community, let's say, and they share the same wins every week in a way, then would that mean that they'll each get ranked and get the same amount of respect in a way? And this is probably a minor case, but it's just something to consider, taking in mind that most of these communities are working as in a way as one, and like not every contributor is like actively contributing, like, but they probably can still represent their team's weekly wins, perhaps. But that's maybe like more so in the rabbit hole kind of thought, and probably until we get some of this case, then we don't have to think that much about it. But yeah, it's just something.
Yep, that's a good thought. And I agree. I don't think it's the biggest priority right now. Like I do like keeping it simple, in the prompt and kind of dealing with that that issue more so when it arrives. Like currently we don't have that issue, so I think we could probably handle it later. That being said, I mean we have had some experience with this, quite a bit. So say Optimism Fractal, we have the Optimystics team and we each contribute in different ways and we share what we do. We don't generally say what the whole Optimistics team did. We usually just we each have enough things to share that we just share what we each did as individuals. During the Genesis Fractal, there was the Fractally team that also, they're each if they're working or part-time or full-time or whatever on this, then usually each person has a lot of things that they can share on their own. And with other teams too, like say Optimism Fractal, there are several members from the Blockful team. There was Gabriel and Zug and Danny and several others. And in a lot of cases, they don't join every week. So that issue becomes, less important then. But even then, they're each doing different things. So I don't think it's like a huge priority to discuss that or change the prompt based upon that. But that's something to consider in the future. And on that note too, the Fractally white paper, fractally.com. This white paper had a design for teams as well. So if you go to the Fractally white paper and you go to page 27, then they had the idea of how you could have teams that basically share what they did to help the team, and then they kind of split the respect in some ways. There's a lot of ideas here too that were explored, and we actually had an Eden Fractal team back in the Genesis Fractal that was pretty interesting. But yeah, I think that's more so stuff that we could probably save for the future and just kind of like think about in the future. But it's not that big a priority right now. But definitely worth reconsidering though as fractal communities grow and there's more and more teams contributing, I think. Should I return to the proposal now? And
Yep,
okay,
thanks.
sounds good. And then the other thing regarding teams too, you're welcome, thank you. The other thing that regarding teams too is this higher order fractal. So we'll get to that momentarily because the higher order fractals is like not just one person, like ranking one person, but it's like ranking the entire fractal and what the fractal contributed. So that's kind of like if you think of the fractal as a large team, then and like a scalable team, then that's also what this higher order fractal does too. So we'll get to that momentarily, but first I'll just add, in addition to this game prompt, so all of that, very interested in hearing other formulations that may come. And there's other formulations I mentioned in this other strategy document too that might help us inspiration too. I also did a whole bunch of research that I have on this other page there where I was talking with ChatGPT about the game prompts and so forth. But yeah, if anyone wants inspiration from the 2025 strategy document that we shared last week, then you can find some there. In addition to that, I think that because we're planning to play bi-weekly respect games, I think it makes sense to extend the speaking time from 4 to 5 minutes, rather than just taking 4 minutes to show what you did to your contributions. I think 5 minutes is a bit more appropriate there. Just give people more time because they're sharing not just 1 week's contributions, but 2 weeks contributions. And we can accomplish that by just starting the event, say at the top of the hour, rather than a lot of times we start at 5 or 10 minutes late. So, uh, rather than having like just hangout time before we start recording, we can open up the Zoom room 5 or 10 minutes earlier and start the respect game or start the presentation and get into the respect games right from the top of the hour. So um, that's not a huge thing, but I just think that logistically 5 minutes is better than 4 minutes. It also kind of just sounds better too, that each person takes 5 minutes. And then in addition, this is kind of like a rehashing, but just more details about why a biweekly cadence I think is good for both Eden Fractal and Optimism Fractal. I think there's still a lot of benefits for weekly cadence for many fractal communities. I think there will be in the future, but there's just some more benefits about why it makes sense. I think this Eden Fractal and Optimism Fractal biweekly cadence. So that's that for that proposal about the new game prompt ideas and the 5 minutes versus 4 minutes and the benefits of biweekly. Thanks for the claps, Rosmari. Do we have any comments on this? Any questions, comments, or should I move on to the next proposal about the higher order fractal ongoing distribution framework? I see Gudasol giving a thumbs up. Thanks, Gudasol, that you're enjoying it. And we have Rosmari and Gudasol muted. So up there goes Rosmari unmuted, muted.
I mean, I was just thinking, yes, it makes sense to go into a weekly cadence once the whole community feels that it's time to meet more often and follow each other's contributions more thoroughly, like not thoroughly, but more often. And probably there's use cases for that, specific use cases for doing bi-weekly and weekly. And it depends where in the stage of the progress of the community that community is and like what they want to achieve. And yeah, it's all about the changing the pace if need be. So I agree.
Cool. I agree 100%. Yeah, we've done weekly events for several years now, and we've done hundreds of them, and they have a lot of benefits of people getting to collaborate, and having that weekly accountability and having that community bonding so that you really get a chance to get to know each other more each week. But at the same time, it also does take a lot more time and resources too, and you can get a lot of those benefits from biweekly. And so I think that this biweekly cadence between Optimism Fractal and Eden Fractal will kind of get some of the best of both worlds, where we'll have that kind of weekly balance, but we'll have each event on a biweekly. At least that's my thinking right now. And then, yeah, I think as communities grow, that's something that a lot of communities will want to have the weekly as well, especially when there's a lot of people joining. Some people can't make it for this week or whatever, but if there's always going on, then there can be more opportunities there. So thanks for the thoughts, Rosemary. And I will move on, I suppose, now to the fourth proposal. And this fourth proposal is about the higher order fractal ongoing distribution framework. So proposal 2 was once again about the higher order fractal retroactive recognition. So this is basically setting up the initial distribution for the respect of higher order fractal, which can include all these different fractal communities: Eden Fractal, Optimism Fractal, Genesis Fractal, Aquadag, Alien Worlds Fractal, Upscale, the new Respect game communities. There's now a Bitcoin Fractal that Pascal started there. There's all sorts of different, communities that have experimented with this. Over the years, we have optimistics.io/communities with an overview. And so we're planning to have a distribution process using a metrics-based framework to bootstrap a higher order fractal based upon different metrics. Like, well, then I don't know if we're planning this. I just introduced this idea earlier today, so that's just my idea, my proposal. But this is what I think might be the best idea to unite and foster the growth of these fractals. And then once we have that initial distribution of a higher order fractal, then I think it makes sense to go into an ongoing operation of higher order fractal. And basically, the way I see this working, and this is very largely inspired by the article that Tadas had written. So for anybody who's not familiar with this article, I brought it up briefly, but he wrote an article that's on his Peaked document that goes into the introduction, the motivation, and how the higher order fractal could work. He wrote this last year, so I think our version of it is quite different now. He thought about doing like a monthly respect games for fractals, and where each fractal elects like a representative, basically, that will rank the other fractals in a basically respect game between fractals and fractals with representative subfractals. And there's a lot of ideas here. I just reread it again last night. So recommend people reading it for inspiration. And we also did do a video about this too. Whoops, I pulled up the wrong one actually, but Eden Fractal, I think 73 or something like that. If you go to edenfractal.com or the Encourage YouTube channel, there's one about fractal sports that we talked about higher order fractal for maybe a half hour or so forth when he first came up with it. So that's kind of like the original inspiration. And once we have the bootstrap of the respect distribution for the higher order fractal, then we can start doing an ongoing distribution. And there's other ways this could work, like Eden Fractal could play a bigger role in this too. And I figure that Eden Fractal will kind of nurture and incubate and steward this higher order fractal. But basically, the idea here is that we can use weighted voting in Snapshot and all the different fractals. So first we'll have that higher order fractal retroactive distribution to determine how much voting power each fractal has. So maybe, a fractal community that's done a lot, like Eden Fractal, maybe it has, I don't know, 5,000 respect of this higher order fractal. And then maybe a community that just hosted, say, 5 events and they had 5 people join or whatever, maybe they have like 200 respect for their fractal, maybe 500 or whatever the number is. And then all these different fractals have different amounts of respect, and then each of these fractals have their own instance of ORDAO where their community members can vote on polls where it has all the different fractals in those polls. So it's actually very similar to the idea of retro polls, and it's also inspired by the idea of respect trees as well. So we've been thinking a lot of this idea about just how we could use snapshot polls with respect, where you can vote on different projects. And we didn't actually get around to doing it, but in this past round of retro funding, we had the idea of creating retro polls and I have a whole article about it and planning to do it in the future, where basically you can vote on, like, basically you have all the projects that are participating, or in this case, all the fractals, and then you add them to a snapshot poll with a weighted voting interface, and then each person can vote, and they say, oh, well, I think that we have some sort of question, like rank how much do you think that each fractal contributed to the fractal ecosystem and how much respect they should earn. And then you might say, oh, well, I think Eden Fractal did really good, so they deserve 15% of the total respect, and then this other fractal deserves 2% of the respect, and this other fractal did amazing, so they deserve 20% of the respect, or whatever it is. And then each community member could be able to allocate their votes for that quarter in these weighted voting polls, basically using their respect. So it's modeled off of this idea of retro polls, which is also modeled off of Das's idea of retro respect trees as well, which we also have an article about this too. And he came up with a draft design that this is built off of. So no, obviously you don't have to go into all these details if you haven't been following, but these are like just to show some of the inspirations for it and some of the things that people might want to look into if they're interested in diving deeper and figuring out the best ways, because I think that there's a big design space for a lot of growth here. And, we have videos about respect trees and retro polls and how these all can work and so forth. So we have a lot of documentation about this that we can put into play. And I see you have your hand raised, Rosemary. So I'll just, if you want to jump in at any point, then feel free to unmute, or otherwise maybe I'll just wrap up the thought and I'll pass it to you afterwards. But yeah, basically, I think that once we have that distribution, both the community ORDAOs and then the total amount of respect in the higher order fractal amongst the different fractals, then we have it where we have these quarterly polls, maybe monthly, but I think quarterly might be good. And then we have it where each of the fractals, maybe there's like some application process, or I don't know, some way that new fractals could join too. So for example, Tetra, I don't think, as far as I know, has hosted any respect games or fractals, so they don't currently have a respect distribution. But especially if Gudasol is like starting fractals and there's thousands and thousands of people joining and they're contributing to the overall growth of fractals, then that can deserve a lot of respect from the higher order fractal. So maybe, Gudasol for a while he did Aqueduct, he hosted Aqueduct, and that could be maybe having voting power in the initial distribution of the higher order fractal, but then on an ongoing basis, different communities like Tetra or Optimum Fractal, Eden Fractal, any other community like the Zao Fractal, or anybody else who's playing the respect game or contributing in any way to the mission of implementing fractal decision-making processes could be put on this snapshot poll, and then all these different community members of different fractals would be able to vote on the snapshot poll according to and basically weigh their votes according to which fractal communities they think contributed most to the fractal ecosystem. That's the idea. The other one part about this is that, or maybe two parts about it, is that one, I think we could do retro pitches as well. So we've done retro pitches for 2 seasons now. If you go to optimistics.io/retro pitches, then you can see we've hosted about 6 events where we had about 35 public goods creators in the Optimism Collective join, and they each gave like 5-minute pitches on what they did to help optimism, say, over the past year. And we could have a similar thing that could help people rank and evaluate different projects or different fractals, rather. Each fractal could say elect a representative to give a speech or give a pitch for their fractal, and that could be accompanied with the voting across different fractals on the snapshot poll. So there's that, and then maybe even it makes sense for this like higher order fractal, or we can call it a fractal to operate independently of Eden Fractal at some point. But I don't know. We could basically play it by ear. Rosemary?
Okay, thanks. And so I have a few questions, but the first ones, then after the voting is done in the poll on which fractal gets the most respect for this quarter, then what? Then what's the point in doing that after? Like where would each fractal, in what situation would they be using that respect? In which situations? I was thinking maybe depending on the ranking they got for a specific fractal, then that multiplies to like that percentage kind of based on the calculation, then adds like a bonus for the contributors to that fractal who are playing the respect game or something like that Eden Fractal. So that could be like a use case, but apart from this, I don't know what else they would be using that respect for as a fractal. And also I was thinking like they will have to receive that respect into an account, like a fractal account too. So that was another thing. But that's, I guess, less important in a way. The second thought.
Okay, well, great thoughts and great questions. So, yeah, it is possible that, say, Eden Fractal or other fractal communities could choose to like reward this or give it a multiplier or something like that. There's all sorts of different ways that, and especially Eden Fractal, since our mission is so aligned with the fractal ecosystem, might want to provide extra rewards or extra awards or extra capabilities or powers or something like that for people who participate in other fractals. So that's one benefit of it. And then other benefits of it. I mean, it kind of goes a little bit to what we were saying before about the benefits of creating the higher order fractal in the first place. So this creates a much more decentralized fractal and a much larger fractal in a way that is composed of all the other fractals, and can generally help steward and foster a greater growth of the fractal ecosystem. And who knows, it can be composed in all sorts of different. What's up?
They could be voting each of the fractals based on their quarterly respect points can be voting on certain matters about that higher order fractal, is what you're saying?
Yeah. And that also kind of answers some of your other questions too about where respect would be distributed, like what would happen after people vote, basically. So basically, we'd have to set like some sort of, distribution amount and way, like maybe, I don't know, maybe during each higher order fractal of quarterly event, there's like maybe 1 million respect that's distributed, or 1,000 or whatever. Let's go with 1 million for now. And then you would determine, okay, well, this fractal got 10% of all that, so they get 100,000 respect, and this fractal got 3%, so they get 300,000 respect or whatever. Or actually, no, they get 30,000 respect in that case. So there'd be that amount of respect that's distributed total to all the different fractals. And then I suppose either it could just be kept by so each of these fractals will have their own ORDAO, and then their own ORDAO, they could also use some different sort of mechanism for how they kind of own their account and manage their account in a decentralized way. So they could use like a council system, like for example, how Vlad has built in the Respect.Games app, or was conceived in the Fractally white paper. But just to keep it simple right now, like basically there's gonna be like a consensus process for each one of these. And we can just say ORDAO since what we're using. And Tadas was here when we talked about ORDAO. So if each one of these communities has their own ORDAO, then they could, I suppose, decide to give the higher order fractal to their participants, maybe in relation to how much respect they've earned for their specific fractal, or it could just be where the fractal itself has the respect from the higher order fractal. I suppose that's something we'd have to decide about exactly how that would be designed. And then, yeah, the fractals themselves or the participants in the fractals themselves would be able to participate in this larger ORDAO account, or using the ORDAO software to govern this account. And then, yeah, they basically have this higher order fractal. All these different fractals would be able to coordinate as a cohesive whole, not just each fractal community, but all the fractal communities together would kind of be able to coordinate together in this shared account. And then there's all sorts of other benefits too. So, I mean, having that kind of coordination between all those fractals could have benefits for the whole fractal ecosystem, and potentially it could make it so, maybe the whole fractal ecosystem could determine to allocate more time or resources or attention or whatever to this fractal or that fractal. So there could be benefits like that. Or they could, coordinate to make more education materials or tools or whatever it is. And then you can compose this with different things. So like you could have, I don't know, for example, roles from Hats protocol based upon respect from the higher order fractal. And then this could also be like crucially like a very important point of something that this could enable is like funding on this large higher order fractal kind of ecosystem. And it's also kind of like setting an example for how other ecosystems, like for example, Optimism retro funding could work as well. And so you could have it, for example, where maybe if somebody doesn't want to fund a specific fractal, they don't know which fractal to fund, they want to fund the higher order fractal, or maybe they want to fund Eden Fractal, or whatever it is. Um, like a lot of it's kind of like conceptual and like experiments, and like again, like as I said, I don't know if this is the highest priority for us to focus on like next month or something. Maybe it's like 6 months from now, but I see a lot of benefits in like the ability to rally around all these fractals together to establish this larger fractals that awards all these different fractals, that measures contributions to all these different fractals, and that has that composability, that potential that potentially that could, this higher order fractal could distribute funding to the other fractals. And it could be a lot of funding potentially, and it really should be probably over the long term, because that'll help grow the fractal ecosystem. So it's still kind of rough ideas right now, but hopefully that helps clarify both how it would work logistically and technically, and then the rationale for why we might want to do this kind of thing. Does that make sense? Or any other questions or thoughts on that?
Makes sense.
Okay. do you want to continue? We are at an hour and a half, so I guess we could wrap it up pretty quickly. But we have one more proposal left. Do you have any other comments on this proposal for now, or should we move on?
No.
Okay, sounds good. Well, I really appreciate you being here, Rosmari, and helping to guide us through this. And I suppose I'll get into the last one. Once again, encourage people to read through it because there might be like really significant details that we're missing out on because we're kind of just giving a high-level overview of these proposals here. And feel free to reach out with any comments throughout the coming weeks. So the last proposal is it's more so specifically it's about adding another core intent, and it's also this section just kind of goes over the strategic alignment between the intents and these four proposals and the mission and the vision that we're aiming to achieve. So the core intent that I added previously in the in this Eden Fractal 2025 strategy, nurturing transformative growth document, I had proposed to set core intents that are like specifically with what products are working best for fractal communities. And while we have a broad vision, that's a very grand and great vision to um, enable all communities and organizations to have the tools and methods to make the best possible decision making, and we have a clear mission about um, implementing fractal decision-making processes throughout society via collaborative research, development, education, and community engagement. I think it's really helpful to have core intents that specify that because it's like, okay, well, you have that mission and you have those 5 ways you can implement fractal decision-making processes through education and gamification and development and so forth. But like, okay, what are we actually doing, like specifically, like on the ground, like on a day-to-day basis? And it's like, I think the concept of core intents, which we've never had specifically for Eden Fractal, we have for Optimism Fractal, but the concept of core intents, I think, can be uh, a appropriate kind of conceptual framework to specify our efforts and focus our efforts as a community for Eden Fractal to help achieve our mission to implement these fractal decision-making processes at society. And the way to do this, I think, the intents I have in mind are about implementing the respect game. So focusing on how we can implement the respect game. It's been like the most successful product and way of implementing fractal decision-making process throughout society by implementing the respect game in different communities and organizations and helping people benefit from it and developing the respect games and promoting the respect game and so forth. We can measure that by number of active community members playing weekly, total number of people playing, total number of communities playing, variety of people using it for different kinds of implementations or use cases, quality of feedback, growth in educational resource usage and stuff like that. So these are ways that we have a specific core intent that drives towards our mission and vision of implementing the respect game. And similarly, the second core intent that I had here was respect token utilization, which is okay, once people play the respect game, then what matters for fractal decision making processes is how they're using the respect token. And that's like using things like creating councils and making governance decisions about it, or allocating resources, allocating funding based upon respect, or other things like we do community agenda setting at Optimum Town Hall, or to be able to measure the impact of different projects in the Optimism ecosystem or Ethereum or Base or whatever it is. And so we can measure it by like how many decisions are made using respect, how much value is governed through respect, like where people are voting on things where value and money or funding is distributed according to respect votes, integrations with protocols like hats and other ones, active participants using respect and so forth. So, and then of course too, these are the names of the kinds of brands that we use mostly with respect game and respect, but you can also use other names like appreciation tokens, or whatever. So those are okay. But that's kind of just a recap, just to show the core intents that I shared last time. I still think that these are a great idea. And this time I just decided that I think it'd be helpful to add another one that's more about fostering collaboration amongst builders too. I'm open to doing this differently too, but I just kind of felt like those two were they weren't totally connected to the to I don't know exactly what it was. They weren't totally connected to the to the game prompt and the mission and the vision as much as I thought they could be. And I thought that just like a big part of it that could be added here is just fostering collaboration amongst builders. Because like I was thinking about how to align basically with the game prompt. And if our core intents are only about these two things, then it kind of goes back to your point before, like what happens if people are joining events that aren't specifically contributing to the respect game or the respect token. They're still worthy of respect. And fostering collaboration amongst builders of governance and coordination and public goods is, I think, something that makes sense to be in our core intent. So that's kind of like the idea there behind that new core intent. I figured it just may be helpful to have a third core intent that's just more generally about fostering collaboration amongst builders, because we do need builders specifically to like uh, continue developing the software and to develop the communities and grow the communities and so forth. So that was my idea there. And then I had a bit of a strategic layer integration section here about how these all tie together between the vision, the mission, the core intents, and the implementation layer, which is composed of both the biweekly respect games and the higher order fractal framework. So the implementation layer is working toward driving towards those core intents and the mission to accomplish the vision ultimately. And then there's a bit more details there about how this happens for both the biweekly events, the higher order fractals, and there's also talks about how it aligns with the these two different implementation tracks and the strategic benefits of it and so forth. So that's my proposal basically, specifically just to add foster collaboration, but also have this kind of cohesive strategic alignment between the mission, vision, core intents, and prompts and higher order fractal. Any thoughts there, Rosmari?
So you showed a list of the core intents in the previous document,
Yep.
and now here you have 3.
Yeah.
So are you going to use the previously shown core intents, or are you going to use them as an examples? Because they were good examples.
Yeah, so my thinking is that we keep those basically the same. I sort of like those a lot, intent one and intent two, and then and I'm still not even sure about this. Maybe just those two core intents are best, and we don't need one about fostering collaboration between builders. But I just had a feeling that we should add another one about fostering collaboration between builders, and then we could have another one that's like intent three, uh, fostering collaboration, and they could have a similar kind of breakdown of success metrics and a little intro about that. But we basically just add like we just add intent three over here. What was my idea, and then we'd add a bit more detail about that intent and why it's useful and how to measure the fostering collaboration between builders.
Makes sense. Okay. When in the timeline are the core intents, you think? I don't know why it was proposal 5. I think it should be probably implemented sooner in case you wrote this in a chronological order of implementation. I think the core intents are probably best to be implemented before even before the high order fractal. Kind of respect distribution.
Yep, I agree. I had it in proposal one for this previous document, but then I meant to actually move it up to proposal one, but then I wasn't as confident. Like I'm really confident about these first two core intents, and I think that they're really good. And then the last one about the collaboration between builders, I think it's probably good. But I thought that I was more confident about those other 4 proposals for those other 4 ones we discussed. So that's why I put it down here. And I thought about moving up top, but yeah, I agree. I think this would be one of the like first steps that we do, basically setting these core intents, and that would be helping to guide the biweekly respect games and so forth. And that would be, I think it's probably good to like set a roadmap. Maybe like we take all these ideas, we think about ideas that might be better, we pick the ones that we like the best, and then we say, okay, well, the higher order fractals are good, but maybe we'll save that for 6 months and we'll focus on the core intents first. And then in 2 months, we'll focus on the biweekly respect games or, whatever it is. I think that something like that would be helpful to, after assessing these proposals and refining them or changing and making different proposals, then we set it like a roadmap, and then the core intents would be amongst the first things that we do.
Okay. What on the third one? Why does it say among builders?
Hmm. I don't know. It doesn't really need to. I thought about like fostering collaboration among like regen builders or fostering collaboration amongst like governance and coordination and public goods builders. We could also just do fostering collaboration. I'm fine with that too. I just thought, builders are kind of like how we're aiming to attract a lot of builders who are building what we're doing, but also I'm totally fine with just like maybe removing that as well, and just having fostering collaboration like we do at Optimism Fractal, and maybe that's simpler.
Okay.
Any other thoughts on this or questions or comments?
It's good that you thought about adding a third core intent that is more broad and not connected to the respect game or respect token.
Thanks for the feedback. Yeah, it's part of the reason why I felt like it was kind of like helpful to have that, because it kind of makes it more welcoming for people who aren't, building with the respect game currently. But if they're fostering collaboration amongst like well, we're fostering collaboration between all kinds of builders or all kinds of people, and especially with people who are focused on governance, coordination, public goods. So I think it does make it more general, which is beneficial. Have two specific core intents with respect and respect, but then another one general to kind of balance it out. And I see kind of a nice energy there.
Okay.
Okay, should we move on? We're just towards the end of it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, sounds good. So thanks for all the feedback. Hope everybody's enjoying watching. We're gonna wrap it up shortly. Towards the bottom, I did have I haven't actually finished this, but I wrote down some notes for questions and considerations, such as what's the best timing for these? Like what's that roadmap kind of? Is it best to make two implementations of ORDAO, or maybe it should just be one implementation and Eden Fractal should be the higher order fractal, or should they be merged? I think maybe it makes sense to have two implementations, but open to different ideas. Um, how's the best way to explain it? There's all these questions basically. So these are kind of like earlier draft ideas. So I don't think we need to go into too much of them. One idea in particular I had for Tadas, who may be watching, and just anybody out there, is like Tadas's original conception of higher order fractals is that um, that it's not the people who are voting in a higher order fractal, but it's the fractals who are voting in a higher order fractal. And with ORDAO, I think you could also have it where it is the fractals, or it is the people in the fractals voting in the higher order fractal. And maybe that's not like how he defines it at all in the original article, but also ORDAO wasn't possible before then too. So I think it could work in both ways, where it's either like ORDAO, like a fractal, a higher order fractal is a fractal of fractal communities, or it could be a fractal of fractal participants. And then each participant in the fractal just get voting power in this broader ORDAO. So I don't know, that's a kind of a question. There's also some
Maybe
philosophical
a top
ideas.
three.
Top three, what, top three people, or
Yeah, top three contributors of each fractal.
maybe.
Vote with the respect of that fractal. And they kind of take the decisions for it for the time being, as they are the top three, for example. Because if not, then like a fractal can consist of many people who are no longer active but have, I don't know, high respect maybe, and actually or I'm also wanted to flag there could be like many people who have contributed to fractals that are no longer contributing, and so how many people does a fractal has to wait for their votes until they take a decision in a way? And I assume like the top three current mostly respected members would be the ones that are currently active, because of the logic of gaining respect on a weekly or bi-weekly basis. And if that's not the case, then let's say the top three most highly respected members of a fractal, then there could be a process for, in case one of those three is no longer active, then we could probably use like the second best or third best respected member of that fractal. I just think that this kind of simplifies the voting process for, even if a fractal doesn't have an established voting process, as a fractal itself. The most respected ones can kind of just simplify the voting for that fractal. Another thing I was thinking about maybe 10 minutes ago, but now I remember it, is you mentioned, I think, oh yeah. So the fractal, you said that the fractals that can be part of the higher order fractal are ones that have like utilized the token. And is that like one of the requirements that that a fractal has to have for it to be part of the higher order fractal? Do they have to actually have a token to utilize it, that are utilizing it? What if there's a fractal that doesn't have that doesn't distribute respect, or is just meeting up and kind of just not recording their, just playing the game and not recording their scores, for example, or not using them for something more specific right now? Is there like a limitation on that, or maybe I misinterpreted it?
Good questions and thoughts. So there is, I mean, it's up to us to decide. It's up to the fractal to decide exactly what the qualifications may be. Tadas had a section in the original higher order fractal article where he said it doesn't need to just be fractals. It could be other communities or say DAOs that can have their own consensus process that might not use fractal processes to come to consensus. So you could hypothetically have any sort of consensus process. To be able to form like the different subfractals of the higher order fractal. But they would need some sort of consensus process, and having a reputation token, like a respect token, would provide a great way for them to do that. But yeah, I suppose it could also be like you could just have Tadas even brought up the example, like it could be one person basically who participates in a higher order fractal, and they probably receive way less respect than a fractal with 100 people or something like that, but they could potentially do it. And I suppose you could also have like a business even operate in the higher order fractal where you have like a CEO and stuff like that. And they're making the decisions and they're just the representative. They don't have some sort of decentralized consensus process. It's just whatever the CEO says is what they do. But I suppose that'd be up to the higher order fractal um, consensus process to decide on what's like allowed and what's okay. So yeah, to answer your earlier question, so there's different ways that fractal communities can operate and different kinds of consensus processes you can have. So you kind of suggested like a three-person council system, which could work. So I recently put together this article about fractal democracy and various ways you could do it on the Optimistic site. And there's a section here where it shows like different kinds of fractal decision-making processes. And one is we have like the Sages Council at Optimism Fractal, and Vlad has built a similar kind of, but different kind of council process, whereas the top 6 people, not top 3 people or top 5 people, get voting power to make decisions for the community. And all those can work. And I suppose different fractals can use different fractal decision-making processes. We also experimented with the Eden Fractal, if you remember, where we voted on a delegate in each event. And then there's these different ways, like just voting directly with tokens, like the retropitches and respect trees. But ORDAO is very unique and it's quite a beautiful system. So I think that those council setups are great in many ways too. And that can certainly be explored. But one thing about ORDAO that I think you're familiar with, Rosmari, but maybe people who aren't watching aren't familiar with that because it's a new and really innovative software, is that even if a majority of people aren't participating, um, then the community can still, or the organization or whoever's using the ORDAO smart contracts can execute transactions. Like it overcomes the idea of voter apathy where voters don't vote. It's optimistic because it trusts a minority of contributors who take initiative to act on the behalf of the DAO, even if they hold a small amount of respect. So we could set the parameters of this to have it where, say, you only need one person to propose something, or only need 3 people with some respect to propose something to approve something. So um, there's a lot more we can go into there. And we discussed that in the previous videos. For anybody who's watching more details about this, we have like a Eden Fractal video that goes really deep into the OREC contract. But at a high level, basically, I think that this would be empowering by giving them ORDAO. We're also giving them a consensus process, any fractal community, as well as the ORDAO itself. So the idea here is that we wouldn't need to do a three-person council because ORDAO already has this process where you can just configure these four variables or five variables about what's the voting period, what's the proposal voting weight threshold for who can make a for the minimum amount of respect voting yes for proposal to be eligible for passing, and then how much respect could be used to vote no to veto a proposal. And yeah, so those are like the main three variables basically. So we would just set that to determine when the higher order fractal or any of the other subfractals would make decisions. And that could now not just the top three, but say 10 of the people who received a little bit of respect, or one of the person, or whatever. You can configure that choice to basically solve for that. That
Okay,
makes
where
sense?
do you configure that? Is OREC, can OREC be implemented from the point of the higher order fractal and implement OREC to each of the fractals on the higher order fractal end? Or does OREC, for example, has to be implemented by a developer from that specific fractal if they want to use it? Like, on which end that has to be configured for it to make sense in the higher order fractal aspect? And also, how is it to implement OREC is another thing, which maybe we can discuss another time too.
What was the last question? Is it what, Oric?
Like, how easy is it to implement OREC in a way? Is it like 1 day thing, or does it take like weeks, or also kind of the like resources of implementing it, like how easy it is for someone to do it, and kind of the skill set that the developer needs to have roughly for it to be implemented? Because I think maybe OREC and ORDAO and this kind of software is great for a great use case, like, but that use case has to be like large enough for the use of these tools to make like greater sense. And I think maybe higher order fractal is like a good use case for the popularization of these tools. But I think it's like worth discussing how, like, the details around that.
Yes, great points. So I'll try to, and I think there was three kind of main questions that you're asking, or three main things that you're seeking clarity on. So one, or maybe I'll go with the last one first. It's like, how easy is it to deploy and get started with ORDAO? So we know from Tadas, so right now it's very difficult for anybody who's not Tadas, basically. Tadas made, if you go to the ORDAO, yeah, if you go to the ORDAO article, which you can find at optimistics.io/ORDAO, or I have it linked somewhere here. Yeah, I should refine this article to make it easier to find that. But Tadas made these ORDAO office hours for them where he walked through how it works, and currently there's and he has a console application and stuff like that where he walked through how it all works and stuff like that. So it is possible for any developer to learn it right now, and Tadas is open to showing developers how it works and stuff like that. And there is a lot of educational resources we can start, but it does take some learning to actually do it. And right now for Tadas, it's at the point where we asked Tadas to set up ORDAO for Eden Fractal and Zao Fractal, and he said he could do it by January 20th or something like that. So that means that he's also developing ORDAO v1.12. If you go to Discord, he's working on first developing, and one of the main improvements here is to make it easier to deploy ORDAO, because right now it's like an early state and it works. He deployed it for Optimism Fractal, but it's not that easy to redeploy. But with ORDAO v1.1, it will make it significantly easier, and he's aiming to release that in the next week or so. So and then maybe that takes Tadas an additional month, and he was being conservative there, an additional month to be able to implement it for Eden Fractal and Zao Fractal. The idea, though, is, and I believe what will happen is that we can get this down to like an instant thing that anybody can do it. They don't need to be a developer or anything like that. So right now, the screen I was showing, Tadas was showing us the OR console software, which is like a pretty technical software thing that you need to use a console, like specific keyboard commands and stuff like that, and look at all this, which is not user friendly to like just everyday people who want to just who aren't technical at all. But developers can now use this to basically start an ORDAO, well, no, first they have to deploy the smart contracts, but then once the smart contracts are deployed, then they can use this to execute all the actions of ORDAO, like distributing respect or changing those parameters that I showed you before, or making any sort of on-chain action, making any sort of decision to do anything on-chain. All that's possible within the ORDAO console, the OR console as it's called. And Abraham, I believe, is planning to build the OR console features into Fractogram, which would make it really easy. So that would make it so that you don't need to know any of this stuff. You don't need to see all this. I mean, like generally how it works, and this can provide documentation, but there'd just be buttons. There'd be buttons that say like send respect, play respect game, start up new, like do this on-chain action, and everybody could vote on it, and it'll be all very easy in that Fractogram app, which is at optimistics.io/Fractogram. So that's the idea. That'll take some months to get there, I imagine. But that will make it so that one, with the new ORDAO v 1.1, it'll get easier to deploy. So Tadas can deploy Eden Fractal and Zao Fractal within a month. And I imagine that eventually he can get that down to like maybe it can be deployed in like just a button click. That's how that happens with a lot of software. Like it starts off, it takes months to deploy, and then you get it down where you have an app where you can easily deploy an ORDAO. And that's what we want to do. We want to have it, like Vlad has in the Respect.Games app, he has it where you can go and just like start a community instantly. And it deploys all the software that Vlad built, which is comparable to ORDAO. He has it where there's this button to log in and create community. You do it. It's super simple, and then you have a community, and all the smart contracts are deployed. So that's how it should be. It should be built into a user app so that anybody can deploy ORDAO instantly. It's just going to take some time to get there, and then also integrate it into this kind of front end that Abraham is building to be able to execute all the decisions from there. And this Respect.Games app, it's an amazing, wonderful app that already shows how a lot of this is possible just with a different technical architecture. But this is kind of like something you can imagine how ORDAO can become implemented in this kind of Fractogram app. And then the last kind of question or thought you had was about who makes the decisions or something like that. And it's like, well, each of these communities would have their own ORDAO implementation. Say in the High Order Fractal or each other Fractal, each other community that implements the Respect game. If they want to use ORDAO, they could also use the Respect.Games app or some other software as well. But then basically anybody in that community would be able to vote in that interface. So if you went back to the ORDAO article and you see at the beginning there, or at the video, there is the OR console where you can choose all these different options of things you want to do. It has on the left side all these different actions you can do, like send respect and propose this and execute transactions, stuff like that. Basically, anybody in the community who's earned any respect would be able to propose that, or maybe there's a minimum threshold for who can propose, and then the people would be executing it. So the ORDAO itself, the community itself, would be executing its own transactions using this. And over time, both the usability of the front end uh, and the abstraction of this to put it all in easy to use buttons, plus the ability to quickly deploy the contracts will become faster and faster to hopefully become like a thing that anybody can use it very easily without needing to know any of the details technically. Does that answer your questions? Anything? Oh, you said yes?
Thank you.
You're welcome. Very welcome. I appreciate you getting into all the technical details here. That's very helpful for both us and anybody who's watching, I imagine, who's looking into getting into this because so much here and we don't there's a lot to learn, a lot to explore. Hopefully I'm doing a good job of clarifying that, and I suppose Tadas can follow up in the chat if there's anything that I got incorrect there.
Okay. You're?
Okay, so I suppose I'll begin to wrap it up now.
Mhm.
So we talked about I'm going to organize these questions better. I started to do it, but they don't quite look right yet. So all those questions I'm going to better formulate in this end of the Eden Fractal 2025 strategy refinements document. But right now there's just kind of overview of some things to consider that we can review later. For anybody who's reading right now, maybe just take that with a grain of salt that there's some repetition right now and it just needs to be improved. And then, yeah, basically there's a conclusion here, which is saying how these key proposals or these proposals work together to create a comprehensive infrastructure for democratic coordination to nurture that kind of transformative growth for Eden Fractal and all fractal communities in 2025 and help people benefit from all these apps, help foster more development, help people benefit from the Games app and the ORDAO, help people benefit from all the things that we've enjoyed so much over the past couple of years with Eden Fractal and with the Respect game and different fractals, and help empower all of these fractals, empower anybody to better use these tools and processes and methods to improve their collective decision making for their community organization, actualize our vision via these fractal decision making processes, as well as all the other benefits of the respect game and these fractal processes, like all the enjoyment and networking and collaboration and videos and all the great stuff. So basically, these proposals are out there for anybody who may be watching to review and to get involved. As I said before, this is going to be our last event. This is our last event of 2024, and we're planning to return, I believe, after a several week break, probably on the 16th of January. But stay tuned in the Eden Fractal Telegram group, t.me/Eden Fractal, to see the next steps and the next event. And feel free at any point throughout the break or next year, whenever you see this, whenever you're inspired, to reach out in the Telegram group. Also, join the events, join the Eden Fractal events that will be bi-weekly. Check out edenfractal.com to learn more. And also check out the Optimistics event calendar too, where you can find the other events that we host, including Optimism Fractal and Optimum Town Hall, as well as get involved. There's many other fractal communities like the Zao Fractal, the Tetra Earth initiative that Gudasol is working on, and many other people are working on fractals that yeah, we're aiming to help rally this ecosystem, help people benefit from all the amazing things that come from fractals. So I hope to see you all on 2025. I hope you have a wonderful end of the year. And yeah, thanks so much everybody for all the great contributions here to Eden Fractal over the past 2.5 years. And I'm very, very excited for our next steps, and we're in a very good position to really nurture this exponential transformative growth and really scale these processes and tools throughout society. And I see profound benefits for that, very profound. So thank you so much, Rosmari, for being here with me today for the very long call that we've had, longer than expected, and asking all the great, very thoughtful questions and sharing all the wonderful feedback. Really very much appreciated, as well as everything that we've done to collaborate and that you've helped advance fractal decision-making processes so far and help Eden Fractal. And big shout out to Tadas for all the inspiration. Shout out to Gudasol for all that he's doing. Very much looking forward to collaborating. Shout out to everybody who's contributed to fractals and fractal decision-making processes over the years. And onward, we look forward to collaborating in 2025 and beyond. Any last thoughts, Rosemarie, before we wrap it up?
No.
Okay, sounds good. What should we wrap it up with then? Go Eden Fractal, go Fractals. Maybe go Eden Fractal is good, I think, if you want.
Okay. Maybe
No.
both.
Okay, we'll go both. We'll go Eden Fractal and go Fractals on count of three.
Okay.
All right, here we go. We're messing up our energy after the 2 hour call. Woo-hoo! 3, 2, 1, 0. Go Eden Fractal and go Fractals.
Okay.
All right, thanks all. Thanks for watching. Thanks for being here, and see you next time. Have a great day.
Bye bye.